you go into this room, and it's it's this dome, and you hop into what they have these drones they're called honeybees that the UNSC used to fly around and scout things out. Well, it kind of takes you on this trip like you're inside of it, and it takes you all through this Halo array, across the different, across the landscape, out into space, into the actual inner workings, where you see all of these Sentinels working. It was awesome. It was totally amazing. And then, I mean, I believe when we walked out of there, I was totally speechless.
Yeah.
It's like,
and the cool thing too was the degree at which that particular piece they had done. You could tell just how much work they had done with that, with like, because it was the pseudo IMAX 3D component. Like it was really cool. That part, like, and we got in there. Yeah, we got in there actually really fast. I remember walking out.
The first things we had.
I remember walking out, and we turned around. We're like, "Oh, that's a lie." We did not have that problem. Because that in the museum was honestly what I remember. I remember going in and being like, "That's what we got. That's what I wanted to do." And then the what was the other one that they had? The Fire Team Raven, is that?
Oh yeah, the Fire Team Raven is the arcade games that were originally released in Dave and Buster's, and it's kind of set you're an ODST fire team set across the course of Halo CE, and it's fun. I mean, we only got to play a short segment of it, but it was fun. It was neat. It was interesting. And, you had these kind of interactions where you recognized, oh, wait a minute, I know where this was. I played through this in the campaign. And every now and again, you see Chief pop up.
That's cool.
So it was one, the one thing that I think I appreciate the most out of it, like I said, was it actually made me feel like I was in the Halo universe at that time, and that was that was my favorite part of it overall. Just that feeling is, 343. If 343 was going like that, and they hit it out of the park, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, and like you said, I'm hoping that it's going to be reoccur. They've kind of, the language that they've used is they're like, okay, that's it for this year. And it's like, again, kind of, it seems like they're going to be making this a reoccurring thing, which I really hope is the case. And like you said, if that is the case, I definitely encourage people to find a way to at least, get out to it for at least a day or something,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the lines are going to be long.
It's worth it. In my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, it was worth it.
Mm-hmm. And just as a side note, from what I understand, for anyone who had a VIP ticket, you had that VIP room. All the people who were having problems getting in for autographs, Jen Taylor and Steve Downs actually spent a lot of time in the VIP lounge. So VIPs actually got extra chance to get autographs.
Oh, did they? Okay, that's really cool. Because I know in Florida that was a big contention.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. But all right, so let's talk about secondary characters. I know there was a couple big ones that you wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
The first of which I believe was the Unedited.
Yeah. Let me kind of preface this by saying, when you talk Halo, everyone knows John, they know Cortana, they know Halsey. There are a lot of other characters that we have found within the games, within books, within some of the animated stuff and whatnot that have come out, that they're interesting characters, and their stories, in some, their stories actually impact greater universe in some way, or it's used to display something within the universe. The Or Didact is one of, I mean, the funny thing about the Didact, and and this is the guy, one from Halo, is that he's a tragic character in my mind. He's actually tragic on a Shakespearean level.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, in Halo 4, if you sit back and look at it, he's kind of part of a secondary storyline of that, because the whole point of Halo 4 is trying to save Cortana. You're just having to kind of deal with the Didact en route to doing that. But he's once you get into his backstory, it's really amazing. And like I said, it's actually kind of tragic. On top of that, there's a Val Chevame, who was the Arbiter. The Arbiter used to be a position of great honor before it became a position of last resort, restoring honor. And that all hinges on Val Chevame and his story, which, by the way, was told in a short in the animated series Halo Legends, Duel. Really good. It's about 20 minutes worth to watch. And there are a number of other ones. Serena, who is the AI from Spirit of Fire and Halo Wars, the Librarian, Iona, who is featured in the best short stories that are out there. Saint's Testimony, Martlet Parangoski, not my favorite character, to say the least. I'm going to keep it PG. But a lot of the conflict that goes within the Halo universe kind of runs through her. The ODSTs. ODSTs are, Frank O'Connor said it one of the best. It's like ODSTs have this grudge against Spartans because they just see Spartans as, they got the best armor, they had all this money thrown at them. That's why the best we could do just what they did. Well, not necessarily, but that story is told very well in the story of The Babysitter, and there's an ODST called Brian who kind of exemplifies that. And then, the one that I know that you're waiting for the most is a Huragok by the name of Lighter Than Some.
I love Lighter Than Some.
But and like I said, a lot of these, the story behind these characters, maybe they don't have, but some of them have an impact as to what we've seen in game and in the story in the game. Some of them just help round things out, and they're interesting all in a way. And then some of them never really get the play that they should in some ways, or a lot of people just kind of short shrift it. So this time around, wanted to give these ones a chance and try to explain why I think they're important to the greater Halo universe in a whole. So,
no, I think that's a good idea too. Like you're saying, these are characters that help flesh out the universe even more so. Because that's true for any story, right? Your primary characters are going to always be the skeleton that the skin that holds it up, but the secondary characters really are the muscle and the fiber and the fibers that flesh it out, that make the universe the interesting place. We're talking right now we've mentioned what, like 3, 8, maybe 9 characters, and
8 characters. Yep.
and that's not mentioning, like you have Augustus Cole, you have the entire Noble team from ODST and
Oh yeah.
Reach, or Reach. You have all the all the Spartans that are in the Halo Legends miniseries, or the Halo Legends video, and what is it? Halo Legends was the video. Halo, I always flip them.
Evolutions.
Evolutions, yeah.
Was a short story, yeah.
And they have 2 now, right? Evolutions and Evolutions 2, I believe, just just came out, but
Evolutions was originally released as one novel. It then got split into 2 with 2 additional stories, one in each one.
Okay.
The next was Fractures.
Okay, that's okay. That's what I was thinking. Because Evolutions was the one that has, like, I mean, just mind blowing short stories, but it's got one of my favorites is the conversation between Cortana and Gravemind. I believe was it? Wasn't that in Evolution? Was that was Evolutions, right? That wasn't Fractures.
Yep. No,
okay.
That's definitely in Evolutions, and it's from Karen Travis.
Yeah.
And
and talking about Karen Travis, there's the Kilo 5?
Kilo 5
her trilogy.
Yeah.
So like, but all these secondary characters coalesce into a very robust universe. For those who might be listening in who are much more familiar with the Destiny universe, this is very similar to the Grimoire and the lore entries there. The secondary characters that aren't necessarily in game but are building things behind the scenes. That's kind of what we're talking about here as well. And I think, to kind of use that as a teaser, I want to actually think about, let's kind of take that and shelve it for the advanced session, because I want to start the advanced session, and I just want to let you go and dive into those names. That, I mean, because right, we did a pretty good summary. I would say that it was a good teaser bit into that. So I'm actually going to cut you off for the intro session, and we'll move to shout outs real quick, unless Green disagrees with me.
No, you go for it.
Okay, cool. It's always nice when I get the okay from Green.
Boss lady says it's good.
Okay, all right. The skilled one says it's good. So Pens, I don't know how to save that. What's the shout outs for the intro session do you have for us?
Well, let me start by just saying thanks for having me on Focus Fire Chat. You guys keep having me back for Halo, and I love talking about it. So I really appreciate it. I wanted to give a big shout out to, because we're talking Halo, to other people specifically. DJ Blue PDX, who he was the actual main driver behind Halo Outpost, and he did an awesome job. I got to meet him in Philadelphia and talk to him, and I said thank you. He was the one who actually drove that and did an amazing job. And then also for Dust Storm over Podtacular, the guy was an utter beast. He did like 4 or 5 panels for each one of the Halo outposts, and did a game show as well at them all. And
he was running.
They all went over on like a house of fire, and
my gosh.
I mean, I'll admit there were points and times that sometimes my feelings would run kind of hot and cold, the Halo community, but those 2 instances at Halo Outpost helped solidify the good of it, and for this part, those are the ones that I just wanted to shout out. So.
Awesome. What about you, Green?
It's just major shout out to Pins, because I am, and obviously you guys can probably tell this with every Halo episode that we do. I am not super. I have read the books, or at least the initial of the Halo book, so I am not as knowledgeable in the lore as Pens is, nor Blue. So I always learn a ton when you come on. So my shout out goes to you because I appreciate you coming on and just kind of sharing this passion of yours with us because it's nice to actually sit back and kind of learn a little bit myself while doing the episodes. It's always good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo that as well. I appreciate you coming on and regaling us with the stories that you know in the Halo universe, and also just big shout out to everyone who gives us the opportunity to do this. I know Destiny is pretty much predominantly what you guys expect from us, so having a chance to kind of step out of that and kind of diversify what we're doing is also kind of a breath of fresh air for us. And like Green had just said, this is something that I'm also almost equally, if not more, interested in, I dare say, from a lore standpoint. I'm not nearly as versed as Pins or the guys that do that, but it's always an interesting component and hearing that. So I really appreciate the opportunity to get to learn more about that. But so we'll see you guys later. The advanced session will be releasing on Friday, and in that session we'll plan on what we're going to do is we're going to let Pins go, and we're going to just let him do his thing and explain all these characters that we mentioned earlier here. So be sure to tune in there, and then like I said, we'll be putting the show notes up at the same time, and that will have all the links to Pins stuff, Pins' Twitter, and then his Mixer channel, because I believe, Pins, you said you are trying to get back into... You're running through all of the campaigns, right?
Yep. I had started before, kind of fell off because real life got in the way, but I'm trying to get back to it. And if I can ever get my stream key back from Microsoft, I'll be able to get started again. Because Microsoft updated their terms of service, and everyone who has a Mixer channel has to kind of get the new stream key. So, yeah.
Fun times.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so guys, we'll see you on Friday. And as usual, bye. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm going to...
As usual, bye.
As usual, bye. Yeah. I started listening to the BBC radio stuff just for like news updates and stuff. And their sign off, the guy that talks to sign off is like, and until next time, goodbye. And that's it. That's it. I'm like, oh my God, I love this. I'm going to continue listening to this guy. It cracked me up. All right, so let me get this started back up and advanced intro. Here we go. Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on September 6, 2019, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat, as we continue our discussion over the extra lore topic for August, Halo. This particular episode is going to serve what we lovingly call the advanced session of the week's exploration, so congratulations to those who signed up for a deeper dive, or, couldn't just, let us just leave you hanging from the intro. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. This is always awkward when she does this. Aw, did we lose Green? Oh, wait.
No, I think she just muted.
Oh, no, she can't hear us.
And drop.
I'm back.
Okay, all right. So, as always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. Yeah, she did it to me again.
And this is Green Eyed Music Lover.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
Oh,
I don't know.
for you.
I have no idea. I'm done. Oh my god. And
Oh
last,
my.
I guess Pins, you are the least, I guess, on this one because
Yeah.
I don't know if you can beat that one.
Nope.
in the
Not
hot
even
seat
try.
as guest co-host, we have our good friend Pins Halo. Pins, how are you doing?
You got to know your limitations. And, yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me tonight.
Love you, Pins.
So
That was amazing.
You know, I'd love to say that I came up with that, but I totally didn't. I stole it from Raz in chat. She's like, play Careless Whisper. I was like, okay, I will do this. This will be a thing.
Raz, I definitely owe you a
all I have
nanny
to
sandwich sometimes.
all
okay?
I have to say, Green, is did you capture that on Audacity?
Did I capture it on Audacity? I bet I did because it's going through the same mic.
Okay,
that's
good.
Recording
Okay.
in Audacity.
Yes. Okay. Congratulations, and then I don't have to go and relive that hilarity too badly. So enough with the shenanigans. I know everyone is looking forward to diving into the discussion, so let's just get right into it. And Pins, like I said, I'm kind of gonna just turn this over to you to kind of walk us through the secondary characters that we talked about in the intro session. So I don't know. Do you want to start with the Didact? Do you want to start with a different one?
Yeah, I think what we'll do, we'll start with a Didact. Probably most familiar with the one that's most familiar with everybody on everyone here, and anyone who's played the Halo games should know who the Didact is. All right, so the Didact is a character that we were introduced in Halo 4. He was, at first glance, he was the main antagonist of that game. But in reality, his storyline was kind of secondary to the main storyline of trying to get Cortana back to Earth and saved. But he's a really, really interesting character. And like I said in the first part, he's a tragic one. So I know in a previous episode we've kind of gone over Forerunners. Forerunners was a race of beings that kind of ruled the galaxy in pre-game era, I guess is the only way to really explain it. And the Didact was their was the head of their military. He was born in the rate of the warrior servants. Now, not to get too deep into this, but the Forerunner Society had a bunch of different rates that you would be born into. You would usually stay in that rate, and you would work towards the betterment of runners in general. The Didact was born Shadow of Sundered Star. That was the name that was given him. He was born into the warrior servants rate.
And real quick, Pins, when you say rate in regards to Forerunners, is that like just for anybody who's not familiar with that, is that a social construct?
Yes.
Like, is that a social caste? Is it a actual physical morph? Like, what can you kind of detail that out a little bit, just a bit?
Yeah. When we're talking about rates, what we're talking about is it's a caste system. They are it's a formally defined caste system in a social sense in Forerunner Society. There were physical differences between each of the rates from there, and there were a total of 7 different rates: builders, miners, life workers, juridicals, warrior servants, engineers, and theoreticals. Um, each one had their own priorities. Each one kind of stayed within their own realm. At the top used to be the warrior servants. That they got supplanted by the builders, and the warrior servants actually dropped to the lowest caste. From there, but yeah, without going really, really deep into it, it's a social caste system. Essentially, you are born into it, you remain into it for your duration of your lifetime. You usually marry within that rate. Your progeny stay in that rate. Go from there. That's kind of the quick and dirty of it. Because I could go on for an hour just
right. I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page as us, at least on a basic level. When we say rate, that's okay. Cool. Thank you.
No, thank you. And if I bring something up that does need a little bit more explanation, please let me know.
Will do. Thank you so much.
So I will say this much: we should have done Forerunners first, but onward. So anyway, the Didact, like I said, he was born into the warrior servants. Now he gained notoriety. He eventually became the head of the Forerunner military. Like I said, he was born Shadow Sundered Star, but he was given the name Didact while he was teaching at the College of Strategic Defense of Mantle. And his students gave him that because he was very strict and demanding. And I just...
Shocker.
Yes.
No, I love that that's the source of his name.
Yes. He was the professor none of us wanted.
Yep.
Yeah. But one other thing I need to talk about, I guess, when we're talking about the Forerunners, is the idea of the mantle. It was also known as the mantle of responsibility. It was and I'm trying to figure out how the best way to describe this. It's a philosophy of that. It's a philosophy of existence for them. The Forerunners pretty much, it's kind of a really deep concept, but so I'll try to keep it simple, keep it specifically what the Forerunner interpretation of it was that the Forerunners believed that it is their duty to guide all of the species in the galaxy, that they're responsible making sure they don't step out of line, make sure that there's no that no one oversteps their bounds, anything like that. And the way that they approached it was kind of a quote unquote benevolent dictatorship kind of a thing. But what it also meant was, oh, wait a minute, they're starting to get a little powerful enough to challenge us. No, you're going to get knocked down a little bit. Again, that's kind of the quick and dirty of it. I know we've gone over it before and probably spent probably an hour on it. But again, that the mantle was nothing more than a philosophy of how to run the universe or how to run the galaxy. And again, it was kind of a benevolent dictatorship on that. Let's see. So one of the other things about the Didact, again, he ended up he was a very strong believer in the mantle and the guiding force, and being that the Foreigners were to be the guiding force in the galaxy. He actually did a very unconventional practice in that he married outside of his own rate. He married the librarian, who was part of the life work rate. And they had several children. And now all those children became servants. Now, when you talk about the Didact, his story really starts to take off with the war against ancient humanity. In short, humanity had encountered the flood and had started to push out, kind of doing a fighting retreat away from the infection and trying to get away, which eventually led them to encroach on their space. Now, the other thing is, the flood had they had found the flood on Forerunner worlds, and in the human experience of fighting the flood, they knew they needed to essentially wipe the entire planet clean to prevent it from spreading. This, again, of course, brought them into conflict with humanity. Now, even though all of this, and even though that all of the Didact's children died fighting humans, the Didact was a very strategic thinker. His waging of war against humanity was a very reminiscent of World War II U.S. strategy in World War II in the Pacific of island hopping, except this is star hopping. They would hop they would go from one strategic place to another and leave other places alone, kind of like them on the vine to wither and die. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of one of those things that you don't know where they were going to hit next. So eventually the Didact was able to defeat humanity. The final battle was at a place called Turum Hakor. And they had essentially pushed humanity back to this and finally defeated them. Now, they did not. At that time, they didn't push for the eradication of humanity. What they ended up doing was they essentially evolved humanity to a point where they were hunter-gatherer instead of a starfaring race, and then isolated humanity to their home planet, what was Urda Tyrene. Now, even though the Didact had lost his children fighting against humanity, he felt that this was just, but he also felt that humanity had the opportunity to essentially to grow and be worthy of being being worthy of being galaxy again. So this would actually change later on. One of the things that Didact did realize, even though the flood had retreated, and humanity had seemingly beat the flood, he knew that he did have some interaction with them. So he knew danger. One of the things he really pushed was, he said he wanted the Foreigners to be vigilant, prepared if the flood should ever return. His idea was to build a large number of shield walls. For those of you who played Halo, much like Requiem, that would essentially be able to do a star hopping campaign around the galaxy, combat the flood, and then move on to someplace else. The idea of a set battles, whatnot. This is not that he pushed. At this point in time, this is when start to come to power, and they were led by the Master Babe, who had a different idea of how to combat the flood. his thought was a super weapons to deal with blood. By super weapons, we're talking about the Halo rings. The Didact was definitely against this. He saw it as a affront to the mantle presented, essentially wiping out the entire universe to combat, wiping out everything, all advancements to defeat one thing. Just, it was too high of a price in his eyes. He felt that there were other ways to do it. However, much political wrangling, ended up gaining power, and essentially defeat Didact. And when ruling caste, the Druidicals ruled against him. He was ordered to stop the construction of his shield and turn his records to the Master. The Didact refused. At this point in time, he was then banished. He was forced into a cryptum, and where he would have led into meditative meditation, and essentially would be exiled. One of the things on his last night, his last dinner with the librarian, was he hoped that the humans under her care would disappoint, because she was a very strong human. So he was banished to this cryptum, which think of as a stasis pod. Is probably the best way I could describe it. And he was actually banished and the librarian placed him in Jamunkin crater on Earth and hid it away from the Master Builder. Now, the guards that were put in place on this, entities known as war sphinxes, they were defensive craft that were there to that would protect. And actually, the essence of the Didact's children in those war sphinxes that were protecting his cryptum. He was on Earth for 1,000 years before a young runner known as Bornstellar makes eternal lasting come to Earth searching for precursor relics. He was awoken, and his awakening kind of notified the other foreigners that he was awake, who sent ships there to take the Didact into custody. The Didact escaped, and in his escape, he discussed it with Bornstellar. Forerunners have the ability to imprint their consciousness and their memories onto another. It's known as a brevet mutation, which allows a forerunner to, instead of slowly developing, do a speed develop. And it's known as a brevet mutation. So the Didact formed this on Bornstellar to imprint him with all of his memories and his knowledge. They ended up being captured by the Master Builder and his forces. And at this point in time, Bornstellar was taken away. He tried in front of Runner Society, and the Didact was thought to be killed. What ended up happening is the Master Builder banished the Didact into what was known as a is a section of space that has been totally and utterly taken over by the flood. These are sections of area foreigners that just gave up on and say, nope, we're not going there. And these were locations that we see use some of Blue's favorites concepts, key mines, come in.
They're so scary.
You have a planet-sized flood consciousness that can control fleets. What's scary about that?
Nothing. There's nothing terrifying about that at all.
So now, while in this burn, he had been placed in the stasis, but because of a failure, he had woken. At this point in time, the flood that was there realized that live forerunners there and ended up capturing Didact. One thing, and Didact kind of realized what was going to happen, realized that what he wanted to do was he needed to try to he was determined to get some kind of answers. So he allowed himself to be captured. But he thought that he would have killed or just assimilated blood. That would have been a lot kinder than what actually happened. When he was captured, he was analyzed and taken to a flood-controlled ship and was actually confronted by the Gravemind. Gravemind is the consciousness of blood. It's a very powerful being, and what it did was it essentially Gravemind tortured Didact. He cursed him. He underwent unbelievable mental torment that essentially ended up cracking Didact's sanity and morality. But again, Gravemind didn't do all this to kill the Didact. The Gravemind decided that once Didact was thoroughly broken, he was put back in a ship and sent back to space, where he was picked up by the Master Builder and his people. The whole idea was to sow discord amongst the foreigners. Prior to this, the Didact, excuse me, again, he held very tightly to the precepts of the mantle, but had lines that he would not cross. Again, he was not for the use of halos. He didn't think of this indiscriminate, we'll just kill everything to kill the flood. No, that was totally against everything that they understood. However, once he got back, because of everything that had happened to him, and also because he was forced to give he was forced to recall the entire encounter with mind, and he had managed to partially shunt some of them away, but that was brought to interrogation, and it just further damaged his sanity. He ended up being restored back to with his privileges, but he kind of went on to into Requiem, was his main shield on combating the flood. Because of everything that had happened, he felt that old strategies wouldn't anymore, so he had to figure out a way to fight the flood. And so he worked on experimenting himself to try himself so to be in flood. What didn't work. What ended up happening is he came up with the idea of taking forerunners and as composing, meaning essentially taking their biological form, digitizing them, and turning them into a robot, into the Promethean Knights that you see in Halo 4 and Halo 5. Essentially convert their essence into digital. This is all done through a machine known as a composer. And again, he essentially took all of his Prometheans and turned them into these Promethean knights. The knights were able to have some success again, but it was felt that the numbers were too low to really halt everything. So this led to the Didact trying to find other sources of other options to expand his army. So essentially what he ended up doing was, and forgive me, I'm trying to figure out how to explain this next part.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. When the Didact imprinted himself on Bornstellar, essentially what he did was he made a copy of himself. It took some time, but Bornstellar actually took on the persona of the Didact. He had all he had all of his knowledge. It is at this point that you essentially have two Didacts. The Ore Didact is the one we see in Halo right now. The ISO Didact is the one that used to be Stellar. He is the one that actually activated the Halo rings. So at this part of the story, the ISO Didact also is the continued relationship with Arian, which is a really, really weird thing, but I'll go into that part too much. So they had this reunion between the Ore Didact and the ISO Didact. To try to figure out how to move forward. Now, the problem is, Didact had all of his perceptions viewed because of the torture. And where he had gone, and he actually thought that the ISO Didact, who essentially was a copy of himself, was actually trying to proceed on fighting the Flood in the way that the Didact was planning on doing it, was actually endangering the runners, and that he had to become extreme. He felt that the Flood favored humanity because they receded prior, and he hated that they were specifically targeters, and that that the librarians favored the trait of the mantle. So what ended up happening at that point in time is the planet they were on came under flood attack. So everyone left to the greater, which was the last place of defense for Ekimi. It was at this point in time, while the other forces were best to try to set up a defense, that the Ore Didact was going to do something else. What the Ore Didact did was he went to the Halo Ring, which was located near the greater arc. This was where the librarian had moved humans to safekeeping, and so with the idea was there was a conservation measure being put in place where the librarian and the life workers would go out, collect all of the different species, or as many as they could, and put them in a safe location. So after the Halo arrays were fired, they could repopulate the galaxy. The Ore Didact had...
So basically, just real quick, so basically it was like a Noah's Ark-esque concept.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So once So what the Ordideck did was he went to the Halo ring and used the composer and harvested the entire human population on there to turn them into Promethean Knights to add to his army, because he felt that this was justified because it was the humans' fault this was all happening. That his scheme was with these machines they'd be able to defeat the flood, that the Forerunner would unite under his leadership, and at that point in time they would carry out a campaign to eradicate all suspect species that would threaten the and their mantle. The librarian was devastated by the loss of the humans she had to raise in the species. And she ended up going to Requiem and essentially attacked the Ordidact when his back was turned, and imprisoned the Cryptum, because they felt that he was no longer a good leader. So with the idea of, much like before, he would be put into a cryptum, into a meditative hibernation, be in contact with the domain being the central repository of all knowledge for others, and allow him to heal. However, at the very end of the flood, what happening was it was found that the domain was vulnerable to the Halo ray, but this was found out once, essentially firing, or when it was committed. So when the Halo rays fired and wiped out every life in existence, it also damaged the domain, which meant that the Ordidact was not left in a place to meditate in peace. He was left with his own madness. And there he remained until John wakes him up in Halo. He again wants to go ahead. He then proceeded, as anyone who's played the Halo 4 campaign knows, he retook power, took off, and ended up going to Earth to continue his thought of composing humanity to fight the flood. In the final fight on Halo, John shoves a pulse grenade into his chest, and the Didact falls into essentially what was a slip space port.
It was super effective.
Yes. Yeah. So yes, we had a boss fight that was decided by a quick time event in Halo 4.
And then led to one of the most emotional and heartbreaking endings ever.
Yeah, but they're definitely. So, and I'm trying to stay focused here because it's so easy for me drifting off onto something. So I'm sorry.
Well, but I mean, so
yeah.
I guess do you want to shift over into like the humanity side and talk about, one of the AIs, using the segue there, or do you want?
I think we should, in thinking about it, I think we should probably do a quick touch on the librarian. But
Okay.
Just kind of wrap up on Didact real quick. The Didact ended up on another Halo array on Installation 03. He was in a black team, which was a Spartan 2 team. Went to scout that Halo array, ran into the Didact and killed. He eventually was what ended up happening is team John go on Installation 03, and they ended up successfully composing the didact. Now, at this point in time, it is unknown where he was at. And it is unfortunate, but it is felt that he is beyond redemption at this point. Kind of a lot of information, and I'm sorry. Like I said, I hope I was able to present it some. The didact is kind of a very tragic character. He has a lot of depth, and I won't touch a lot on it here because night was. He started off as kind of, again, maybe definitely on the bullet side. He actually gave humanity, gave the ancient human fleet, military that he, and he was willing to let, at that point in time, he was willing to let the librarian kind of proceed with her goals of protecting humanity, trying to show them the errors of the ways, which is what the mantle precepts were, at least runners believed. The tragic part is when he gets corrupted by the flood and he comes back, he's a totally changed person, and leading to the one we know in Halo. It's kind of sad because here's this figure who is immensely powerful, immensely respected, was at one, and it kind of shows how powerful the flood is in forcing this person this entity to change into something totally different, essentially making him a bad man. So it's the one thing about the Halo 4 campaign is you get some of the information, definitely get more if you watch the cutscenes, but for the extent of the didact and to really see him as that tragic character, you have to be familiar with the Greg Bear novels, which I've always found to get through, but that's because I'm not used to the writing style. But it's definitely worth it. And like I said, the didact is a really interesting character. Amazing job writing. Okay, so I was going to hold off on this one, but what we'll do is we'll the librarian, which is the wife of the didact. Again, she was a Forerunner life shaper and head of the life work rate. Given name was First Light Leaves Living Song. Had some interesting names. And she was given the name librarian from her teachers because she enjoyed traveling through great stores of knowledge. She first met the didact on Trome, and that's where they were married. During the war with the humanity, the librarian was part of the Ecumene Council. She actually was the one who initially pushed for immediate retaliation and extermination of humanity. It was only the didact who was actually to change her mind and proposed to follow the teachings of the mantle and say, no, we're not going to totally wipe them out. What to do is essentially punish them, which is what they did, and send them back to their home. This was actually supported by the Master Bill when this came out. She conceded to that decision. And while the librarian was very fearful of this, she respected her husband and his thoughts and kind of went ahead and followed his beliefs. So she actually started gaining power as the wife of the didact, and eventually was given rank of life shaper, which is, again, that's the highest rank that a life worker can get. So it was at this point in time that she had a change of heart as humanity struggled at Chirum. She appealed to spare humanity so the culture could be spared. Part of it was so they could determine what they thought made humans immune to flood. But it kind of fell a little flat because there was the threat of threatening the runners, which eventually led to some of the humanity being composed, but also them being devolved from there. But what it ended up doing at this point in time is she really studied them more and more. Watched them as they struggled to create a primitive society again. And they actually, and amazed her was how humanity was actually able to progress, even though there was a lot of artificially limits put on them. Within a few millennia, humanity actually started to grow past those again. At this point in time, the humanity come to see her as a goddess. She kind of stopped. She had moved away from them, and she visited it sometimes, but not very often. When it came to the halo arrays, the librarian was against it, much like her husband, because she felt that it was against the idea of the mantle. Sorry. But what she ended up agreeing to, because she realized that she was going to lose her position and not be able to protect humanity or have any impact on what happened to the didact when he lost his fight with others, was she agreed to a compromise. She would go forward and agree with the creation of the halo rays, but she would enact what's known as the conservation measure. This was the collecting of species after the halo ray had been galaxy. And this was all sentient creatures. And this allowed her to also be able to kind of control what happened to her husband, and also choose where he stayed in his cryptum. Go from there. Now, once the didact was exiled and once the didact was exiled, she actually she felt she needed to remain an asset. So she proposed a way to learn about the source of the flood and organized an expedition to Path Cathona, which was theorized to be the origin of the parasite. And what it ended up being was it was the home of prehistoric forerunners. And she found that the truth behind what happened was that the precursors was another race that had created everything. The Forerunners had rebelled against them and driven them off. See here.
So if the Forerunners drove them off.
Yep.
How did they so they drove them off. How did they reemerge eventually?
Okay. Precursors.
Oh, this is the fun one.
They are a transcendent species, meaning they can turn themselves into whatever they wanted.
Right.
So what they did when they realized that they were going to lose is they turned themselves into a powder and essentially put themselves on ships and left them to drift just outside the galaxy. What ended up happening
Pins, tell them how they came back.
Yeah. What ended up happening is they drifted in. They were found by humans.
Okay.
Humans found this dust and were interested to see why this was out there. So they ran tests and everything showed it was an Earth. What they found is when they put this dust on pets known as Feru that they had, that would make them docile.
No.
So it's Halo's equivalent of Cujo.
Yeah. But in some instances, instead of making it docile, they noticed that in some instances there were these strange growths that would appear. All of a sudden, they would become more aggressive. And then what ended up happening is the aggressive ones would attack and infect and essentially would cause others to be infected. So, yeah, the precursors in what they did essentially turned themselves into the flood.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So yeah.
So wait, was the flood? Oh god, were the flood there before?
No.
And then they literally.
No. Yeah. The precursors.
I love the apprehension to, oh God, what did I do? the transformation to, oh God, did I open the store?
Yeah. So again, the problem when you start talking about Forerunners is there's so much there and that kind of a backstory. And so I obviously can't touch it because we'll be here till dawn.
Right.
So kind of the quick and dirty is Forerunners fought the precursors. The precursors decided, okay, go ahead and we'll come back. We'll figure out something later to do. So they turned themselves into dust. They didn't count on humanity finding them. Humanity found them, did what they did with the whole Pharaoh, said, oh, this will make these docile. Well, there's some that aren't. Oh, well, about those until it's turned flood. And it kind of went from there.
Well, and the other thing, too, to touch on that also is that the problem with this discovery is that it highlighted something that the Forerunners, the Forerunners didn't want highlighted, and that is the fact that humanity was actually supposed to take up the mantle.
Yes.
The Forerunners were not supposed to take up the mantle, and it was their jealousy over that actually caused them to start the war with the precursors.
Okay.
Yes.
And so that's the other thing that this kind of blew open with the librarian was, or the librarian's discovery was, oh, wait, hang on. We are false. We are basically false kings of this domain. And, that's something that now I don't, Pins, I don't know, you might know this better than I don't know if that's still known to the Forerunners at that time. Or if it was lost.
That was something that was found at Path Cathona.
Okay, so the current
that she kept very. If I remember, I'm trying to remember. She told the Isodidact. I think she may have.
Because I guess my point there is it's the current so it's easy to say, oh well, they're just trying to cover it up. No, I think it's legitimately they didn't know this ancient history of their own species, and so it was a huge discovery on their part, because then it also put into perspective, oh, wait, hang on. all of this nonsense is actually so for like the didact, it's like the humans are attacking us because the flood. Well, the flood only existed because the forerunners attacked the precursors, forcing their hand into creating themselves as this dust. So it's like this whole thing is actually kind of a self-serving prophecy of the forerunners' own doing, which is where
Right.
that's kind of feeding into this tragedy that is the Forerunner saga. Is like it's like a Oedipus Rex Oedipus prophecy, right? The self-fulfilling prophecy, and in trying to take by force something that wasn't meant for them, they actually end up destroying themselves when they should not have been destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, the precursors saw the Forerunners as their material, but they felt that humanity was the right one to take the mantle. And then the precursors also had a slightly different view of the mantle. There was a very holistic approach, kind of new age kind of thing, but the idea that you don't get involved at all unless you're talking about total extermination of a race. That's the only time you got involved. Let everyone develop on their own. Let them fight their wars. You let them stumble. That's what you do.
So basically,
that was the way the precursors felt.
Forerunners are the helicopter parents. Forerunners are helicopter parents, and precursors are the he'll figure it out.
Yeah, pretty much. So, in reality, like I said, the librarian had become very close to humanity, and then her original husband comes back after being tortured by the flood, and ends up composing all the humans that were gray, that were essentially hers. This angers her, and then she essentially, again, puts him back into ambushes him and puts him in a cryptum to meditate, heal.
Sorry, all I hear is the proverbial bad didact. Go back to your cage and think about what you did.
Yeah, pretty much. So she goes ahead and she decides to use herself as bait, draw the flood away from the lesser arc. The ISO didact is to activate the halo rays, because at this point in time, that's the only option left. So she's on Earth, and she actually gets contacted by the flood after the countdown had been started for the activation of the halo. This is where the domain is a precursor artifact, and the halo rays will wipe it out. And if it's wiped out, that's going to end up causing, the ore didact will be left to stew in his own madness. But they had no chance to stop. So at that point in time, the ISO didact activated the halo rays, which were all sentient life in the galaxy.
By vibrating them to death.
Yes. Yeah.
Best kind of way to die.
I would respectfully disagree with you on that one, Green.
I don't know if we want to get into the whole Le Petite Mort thing.
No.
No.
Nope.
I've been in too many Hydra
Yes, you have. You even did that over me. Like that is not even where I was going.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, the librarian also had left, and before this all happened, she actually imprinted seeds in humanity that would lead to certain eventualities. Those eventualities being John and Cortana to stop the didact.
Which explains the cutscene in Halo 4 where she activates that. That's what she's activating when John encounters the librarian, and that whole thing is like pop pop. That switch that gets flipped is something that she actually put in place way back. It wasn't a I know I've seen some people be like, "Oh, well, it's just no." It's actually something that I think is arguably in most humanity, isn't it? Like the component
I
is.
think the roots of it were spread throughout all of humanity, and as she put it, leading to an eventuality. That eventuality being John Cortana and his Mjolnir. So, in essence, she planned for someone, for a Catherine Halsey, to someone like that to come around and essentially to create the AI so humanity could evolve. So, and then she activates it, and then which allows the chief to actually defeat the Didact. So, librarian's an interesting one. She kind of started as an angry mother. She hated humanity for the death of her children, but she grew to love them and realized that they are special in and of themselves. And then she ended up eventually finding out why they were that special, and and eventually to the point she realized the threat that her husband bring to the galaxy eventually. So she put things in place to combat that. And I mean, kind of an extreme way, but that was her way to help protect humanity, allow them from there. Again, yeah. So, and yeah, Wicked, she did tell him, yeah. So, okay. So yeah, that took a lot longer. Those two.
Well, I think we can save this. Let's do this. Let's close out with the other character that we were going to talk about originally, that was from in the far past. The original, let's talk about another tragic character, if we will.
Yeah.
Fall Chavami. I understand that I am offering up my opportunity to talk about Lighter Than Some, and I just want everyone to recognize just how much that means.
Because you love pens.
Because Lighter Than Some is an amazing character, and seriously, the Huragak are just like probably my favorite race.
Okay, so Val Chavame is a Sangheili warrior, and he was we come across him in animated short The Duel, which I just dropped the link to it on YouTube in the chat. So this one's probably going to be really well. At this point in time, this was very early in the creation of the Covenant. This was just not long after the Sangheili and the prophets had joined forces for a common goal. Now, prior to at this point in time, the was a position of high prominence in Sangheili culture, and the Covenant had kind of assimilated that into there as well, much like Christianity said, okay, we will celebrate the birth of Christ for Christmas on the 25th, which kind of matched up pagan holidays for winter. That was kind of how prophets kind of saw the Arbiter. Now, but one of the things that they said was that the Arbiter at this time, Val Chavame, he had a great command of the Covenant military and also of his clan. Now, the one thing, though, he really didn't believe in the concept great journey. He understood the whole political, the you know, the treaty between the two and all that stuff, but he just didn't. He felt that it was not real. He actually saying he lost part of themselves in buying into this. This, of course, brought him into conflict with prophet hierarchs. So, in what he really felt was that the Shan Shayum used this idea of the Great Journey to elevate them above the Sangheli, which was supposed to be worship. He ends up being brought in front of the hierarchs, who they wanted him to profess their faith in the Great Journey. He came straight out and said the Great Journey was a lie. At this point in time, the hierarch, who essentially the hierarch that was there, called him a heretic. This essentially put a marker on Fal Shabamay. As part of this, a more aggressive member of his clan, who was a believer in the Great Journey, went ahead and essentially hired assassins to take out Fal. Fal found this out. Yeah, he found this out.
Yay, politics.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But Fal found this out and essentially manipulated the situation so the assassins would have to come to him. He defeated all of them.
Because he's a Bamf.
Yes, because he's the... And then now, because of this, the other members of his clan who actually did believe in the whole concept of the Great Journey, they end up killing Fal's wife. And the whole idea is to force him into he discovers that his wife is dead. At that point in time, agrees to fight. Now, the member of the clan who is specific to this, his name is Haka. He went to go face Haka. However, there was a enormous Covenant military detachment which was sent to kill him. And if you watch the video, it is a massive group. It is a massive group consisting of jackals, other hunters.
They didn't waste anything.
Al just takes them behind the woodshed and beats them like redheaded stepchildren.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
He then ends up meeting off against Haka on top of a structure and to start their duel. Now, the duel is essentially a one pass for each, at which point in time Haka does score against Fal, but Fal buries his plasma sword blade into Haka, so both die. The main thing about this is that this is the point in time where the Covenant take the Arbiter title and turn it from a title of respect to a title of not banishment, but
shame.
Essentially a title, title shame. From this point, the Arbiter is, if you're named Arbiter, it's because you've done something to bring shame or scorn on you, and this is the only way that you're going to honor back. Most likely, you will die while doing this.
Well, and I was going to say that's also where the idea of the Arbiter being a suicide assignment basically comes from, is because
Right.
when he took up that duel, that was the,
Yep.
kind of the thing.
Oh, yeah. So, this, of course, plays right into Halo 2. I would argue, what ended up being one of the most beloved characters in all of Halo, in the Arbiter. I think a lot of that is because of Keith David's voice acting. But, everybody, at this point in time, everybody loves the Arbiter. There weren't many who loved him at the time Halo 2 came out. But he was really, really, again, this is where, the idea was, okay, you're going to become our Arbiter. You're going to die anyway, but you'll at least bring some honor back to yourself after you've dishonored yourself in
Right.
allowing the Pillar of Autumn to escape. So, yeah. And like I said, a lot of these characters that I mentioned, and the ones that I know we don't have time to get to, I'm not doing their story the greatest justice, because there's a lot of nuance, a lot of stuff there. But it's like Blue said earlier, your main characters form the skeleton, but these secondary characters are what actually breathe life into the universe itself. It gives it diversity, gives it nuance, and there are so many of these inside of not just Halo, but every major, every major franchise that has an extended lore. So
Yeah, it's good to get, and I was trying to tell this to somebody earlier today, is that you get a basic story from obviously story missions, right? But
yeah,
there's so much more to the world that most people tend to miss because they don't go beyond what happens to their character. They don't learn, hey, what is this other guy's motivation? What happened to them? Just one of the interesting things about lore diving in general. Just
yeah.
trying to teach people beyond the basics, beyond what they see.
Mm. And Destiny and Halo share this. It's like, you want to say, oh, well, I have a question about this. Well, to really understand that, you need to know like these three things here, so you can fully understand what's going on with this. And like I said, I could go on and on this, but I also know that everyone here needs to get some sleep. So,
No, I mean, well, and I think here's no, I'm not going to get myself in trouble, but we could, and Pins, I'll volunteer to help. If you want, we could figure out maybe a way to write some articles about those characters, like put into words kind of our own views of them, and kind of at least give people, if they're interested in that, we could put those up. Or we could also, I mean, if we want to do audio supplements for this, we could also talk about maybe doing something like that.
we can definitely see about that part. Yeah.
I mean, I guess my other thing on the topic of lore exploration too is I think, the Halo community and the Destiny community both have this in common, is the need to keep an open mind with the development of stuff too, because you see that a lot in, I mean, I'm going to pick on the Halo community just a bit. It's not negative towards them, but you see that a lot with every announcement that comes out about Halo. There's always that armor is not the right armor, or that's not the right, I don't even know, like weapon or whatever. And it's again kind of, when we were talking about that in the intro session, it's like, part of that is the way that the medium is presented. Part of that is, understandably, if I read a novel, I have my own preconceived notion of what something would look like. Comic books kind of help and hurt that because they actually have the visual components. But when you translate that into a different medium, sometimes the translation, things get lost in translation. And so there's sometimes that component also that needs to be restated as gently as possible, is this might not live up to your mental picture of what something is, or it might be time for an artistic change. That is a possibility, that does happen.
Oh yeah.
But that doesn't, just because it's something that's like not the same shade of gray that you wanted it to be, or what's the undersuits, I guess, is there's a big debate over the undersuits, and hey, I didn't even understand why that's a problem. But anyways, apparently they're going back to the black undersuits in Halo Infinity, right?
Yep.
Or Infinite. God, I keep wanting to call it Infinity, and it's not Infinity. That's the ship. But it's like, sometimes it's just artistic expression, sometimes whatever. So, but I think that's something to just to kind of call out too, especially with in reference to our very, very first conversation about the TV show coming out too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, I can definitely, it's definitely true. There's a lot of story in the Halo universe. There's a lot of different ones. And they all have a point to be told. Not everything appeals to everybody, but they all have worth, and they all, like I said, they all, for whether you like it or not, whether you consider it good or not, it adds to the universe as a whole, and it does make it more alive. So
this is true.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
How are you feeling?
I need water.
Yeah.
I'm a little dry. I'm a little parched right now.
Good job.
Oh, thank you. Like I said, I'm sorry about not getting to everything, but yeah, I'll work with Blue. Blue will work on that and figure out something to get out for some people on that. Even if it is like
even if
something
yeah.
small.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because I think those are, I love hearing like the summaries of different stuff, like the whole thing with like the Forerunners, like the Forerunners and the Precursors, and like not like not the facts, but like the implications of the facts, like the revelation of what actually caused the whole thing, and like the connection between everything being revealed, that hey, look, the flood, which is the central problem between these components, actually exists because of X, and that happened because of this. And, the people who are being presented as these high and mighty heroes, well, they're actually the ones that, because of a dishonest thing they did in the past, and it's like this whole like the Greek tragedy type thing of like the whole thing. And I love that type of story structure that, whether it's Bungie, 343, whatever studio is currently doing the work, they all kind of do consistently kind of lovingly craft these very, very big narratives about this universe. And that's one of the reasons Halo, I think, keeps coming up in our polls. I think that's why the demand for it is so high. Every time I try to space them out to give pens a chance to breathe. But, I think that's where that interest comes from, is because there are these like, there's the base story, Green, you kind of mentioned that with this, like the story missions, there's that base story. And then there's that underlying story that's in the expanded universe. And then there's that further thing where it starts showing like all the connections, and that's what I love kind of getting a chance to look at and seeing, because that's where it's just like there's so many cool connections that are just endlessly fascinating. And it's like, oh, that's why this like small little thing over here reconnects over here, who cares, we found dust that makes our dogs more peaceful, yay, like no one, it's not a big deal. But then you look at like, I think it was like 100 years or something down the road, all of a sudden they're mutating and they're eating each other, and it's like, wait a minute. Oh, okay. This gradual, and Halo as a story spans like eons, and there's actually detailed like accounts across all those years. That's the other thing. Is like, you know, Destiny also spans arguably eons, but like, and Halo has, you know, what, nearly a decade, maybe even a decade and a half build on Destiny. So, you know, I'm not definitely not. That's it's apples and oranges, but like, but Halo's timeline is just robust. Like, there's so many of these small connections all over the place, and that's what makes it interesting. That's why I love Elder Scrolls. It's because it's very similar. It's just, yeah.
Well, I can tell you right now that in that one spreadsheet that I once did that listed like all of the stories, games, comics, all that stuff, like, and broke each the scenes down. There were over 400 lines of 400 entries in an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, that was a massive work.
Yeah, and I'm kind of still working on that, but this time I'm actually breaking out all the missions. So,
oh man, okay.
And
Pins is almost as bad of a masochist as I am with.
Yeah, you both are bad about that.
Yeah. And I think
this is approaching, yes, Osiris mind map levels.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Oh God.
I think it's also because that's how I would think, you know, for me at least, that's how my brain organizes the information. Because then you can kind of go back and you can, you know, like when I'm inputting it, it's like, okay, and then like you go back and you're like, oh, that's when you see like those data trends, you know, that's kind of that arc and stuff. That's where all that work is worth it, because you see that slope, or that, you know, that graph of information, if you will. At least that's me. I don't know, Pins, if that's similar to. I imagine it is, because you format it very similar to the way I format things. So
yeah, I mean, it comes down to, okay, it's a way to visualize what's actually happening, and you start saying, oh wow, this is all happening in parallel. Yeah, I mean, it's the best one is, and the most easiest one to point out is Halo 3 ODST.
Okay.
Halo 3 ODST picks up right after Metropolis in Halo 2, and kind of essentially spans through the end of Halo 2, I believe. You know, so I mean,
yeah,
that's all parallel to that. At that point in time, you have two games that are paralleling each other, and yeah, so it's interesting because you're seeing all this stuff happening. Once you list it out, it's like, oh, this is all happening at the same time. Wow. So anyway,
all right, so shout outs for you, Pins.
Again, I want to thank Blue and Green, you guys, everyone in chat who came out to listen to me ramble. There a day, I really don't know why you back, but anytime you want me back, I will. For Halo, I do appreciate it. I really do enjoy getting to talk about it, and I appreciate that you guys come to me for that. And I just hope that I do it right by you guys for that. So
yeah, that's why I keep coming
back. If anyone has any criticisms, please let me know. I'm always looking to try to improve my stuff from that too. So big thanks to Focus Fire Chat. You guys are second family, so thank you.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and this is something I posted in Discord, there's a lot of, we see it a lot with Destiny, people doing art and comics. I mean, you know, there's a lot of great stuff out there. And I actually came across something here for Halo. It is, and I just posted it in the Twitch chat. It's a fan comic created by a guy named Justin Grosjean. It's called A Little Bit Lucky, and it takes place after Halo 5. It's a fan comic for a discussion between John and Catherine Halsey, and it is amazing. The art is amazing. The story is great. I know this was actually featured on the halo.bungie.org. It's worth it's a short read, but it's worth it. Again, you can there's a lot of things that 343 touches, but there's a lot of little moments that fans will step up and fill in. We've seen it in Destiny, and this is something that was done in Halo, and I just think it's really great. There's a lot of good callback to some of the past stuff in Halo. There might be a couple of things that in discussions may not fully fit, but the feeling behind it is great. Again, I think it's really well written. The dialogue is believable, and I think the art is just perfect for what Justin Grosjean was pushing through on this. I really recommend giving it a quick read. And if you like it, just leave some feedback for him on it, because he's talking about doing another one. And I think it's I just think it's great. So yeah.
Awesome. And I will definitely, let me grab, if you send me that link and I will put it in our show notes as well. But Green, what about you? Thank you so much. Green, what about you? Shout outs wise.
My shout outs are to the various members of the community who have kind of been along for the ride with me, with me kind of getting settled back into the flow of things as far as personal life. So this is a little bit less show oriented and just a general shout out and thank you to everybody out there who has been supportive and just kind of been crying shoulders, helpful, always smiling faces. I mean, sometimes it's been kind of a long year so far, and many of you kind of know what's going on, and some of you don't, and that's okay. But it's just a shout out to all of you guys who have been supportive and just amazing fans and amazing family members and amazing everything. So it is just a big thing for all of you guys. You guys have made this last year a lot easier for me, and it's not been an easy year, but you've made it easier. Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be able to follow that up with any justice. So again, I will second both of those. Be sure like I said, I will include the link to I think, what is it? It's A Little Bit Lucky. Justin, is it Grosjean?
I think it's
Grosjean. Okay. I will include that link. So be sure if you're interested in the Halo story, be sure to give that a read. And kind of doubling down on that. Oh yes, I will also include a link to that. If you have a subscription to Netflix, Legends is on Netflix as well, and you can watch the entire video. It's 6. I want to say it's like 6 mini videos.
It's
6 stories from Evolutions, right? It was Evolutions, and then when it got translated into video, it was Legends.
No, not all of them. Evolutions.
Not all of them.
Some
okay.
Not all of them. A lot of the Duel was not in Evolutions. These are these are all original stories in the Halo universe, and they were all done by different anime companies.
Right, but they had Headhunters in there.
No. Anime. No. Headhunters was a motion comic that was created.
Okay.
That included it was Headhunters. There's 4 of them, and I can't remember. Midnight on the Heart of Midlothian.
Yes, that was Midnight. Oh god, that was a good one too.
And then Oh,
What was the other one? There was another. There was a. Did yeah. Anyways, if you know what I'm talking about, go watch it. It's amazing. Legends is on Netflix. It's awesome. The Duel is part of Legends, and so yes, I encourage you to go watch that. Those links I will put those in our show notes. And again, just reiteration on thank you so much for community. I've gotten a couple good feedbacks this week. I really appreciate it. It meant a lot to me. I've shared them with Green, and I know she agreed with me that they are good criticisms. It was constructive criticism as well as some other positive notes that we like to hear. But we appreciate it, and that is to say, if there is a content creator out there that you do enjoy, whether it's Destiny, Halo, webcomics, or whatever, take a couple minutes, reach out to them and tell them good job. Because I know sometimes it feels like that might be something that happens all the time for these people, for content creators. It isn't. A lot of times what gets communicated is criticisms without any compliments. And so, take a couple minutes and just reach out to, that artist. Destiny community has amazing artists, and just reach out and say, just say good job. Like this is awesome. It means the world to those people, and it means the world to all the creators out there. So, as usual, thank you guys for sharing your time with us this evening. And you'll hear us as it goes through the week. I don't know, Green. Should I just say bye, or should I say until next time? Goodbye.
That works.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So we'll do that one. Bye. All right. And this is going to be a fun one to export because I have no idea what Twitch is going to do about this, because I think it technically went down halfway through the intro session.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Twitch has been I'm watching my stream health thing, and my connection is excellent, and then then it went boop boop.
Yeah,
I was like that's not my internet. that's not my connection. That's you, Twitch. And I know Xbox Live is on the fritz right now.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, guys. We have a busy weekend. For those who didn't catch the announcement, we're going to be doing the first of hopefully a series of Destiny lore reviews. So it's going to be in the same vein as the lore panel and the Q&A piece that we did at Guardian Con. I think right now the current lineup that we have is going to be Green and I, Loose Cannon Show. So I believe Anon Pig,
Rhino.
Baxter, and Rhino are going to show up from them. I know we extended a heads up to Guardian, but I don't know if he's able to make it. We have Mylan, Bife. I don't think Purple was going to jump on. Who am I forgetting?
No, she's not.
Rhino. Baxter.
Don't think Dragon's coming on.
No, I didn't get it. Baxter. Did I say Baxter?
Yes.
Baxter from Ishtar. Rhino, Baxter, Anon, Bife, Mylan, Green, me.
Yay.
Who am I forgetting?
I don't remember.
I feel so bad. Anyways, we're going to do that Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Central. So that's 8 a.m. Mountain Time. I believe it's like 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. European time. If you're in Australia, it's like 10 o'clock at night, which is why scheduling this was fun. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
We literally have people all across the globe, which is like, it's been fun. So we're going to try to do that, and we'll talk about it a little bit then, but just as a heads up, basically what we're trying to do is I want to try to schedule these things once a quarter. at minimum. I want to try so that's every 3 months, or in the span of every quarter. And so
Hopefully.
that's my initial plan. I think we can achieve it. And we're going to be hosting that predominantly through the Lore Network. So we're going to try to, kind of, and we'll explain it all on Sunday morning. If you guys can try to come, we'll be doing it through this channel for right now. But as always, we'd appreciate it if you guys showed up, if you have the time. If you don't, we'll put it on archive. And I think everyone who's coming on there who has a YouTube channel, I'm going to be sending the archive, so you should be able to pick it up wherever.
Somewhere.
Yeah, wherever you see it, and then we'll also post it on the Lore Network. So we'll try to make sure everyone gets a chance to look at it. But as always, thank you guys again so much. Pins, I will be probably swimming in coffee because it's 9 a.m. and I don't like that on the weekend.
Well, it's only 10 a.m. for me.
Yeah,
so
it's
not
10
that
a.m.
much
for
of a
you.
difference.
So Mystic says that she'll bring coffee. Will it be bullet coffee though, Mystic?
Bullet coffee is best coffee.
Need a Red Bull or 5. Yes, it will.
So,
All right, guys. I gotta go. I'm on minion duty tomorrow, so you guys
I have
have
to work in 8 hours.
Ew.
and I have class in 6 hours.
Do you have the link up and show?
Oh no, I will get that. Sorry, thank you.
So upload link.
Yep, I can do that. Boop.
Shankle.
Bullet coffee, as in that's how it's been. No, bullet coffee is it's a style of coffee.
It's coffee with essentially
It's basically
fat
butter.
added to it.
It's basically butter.
Yeah, it's not just butter. There's more to it than that.
There is, but poor man's bullet coffee is butter.
Yes.
Hang on,
It's actually pretty yummy.
It's delicious, is what it is.
And frothy, if you have a nice little frother. All right. Night, you
Perfect.
two.
All right.
Night, chat.
Stream. Have a great night, and we'll see you guys on Sunday.